there. Welcome to White Women Wake Up. I'm Jonelle.
And I'm Karen.
Each week, one of us brings a topic to the table, something we've been wrestling with or reading about or noticing in our own lives.
And the other reacts in real time. No scripts, no prep, just an honest conversation between a mother and a daughter, spanning generations about what it means to wake up as white women in a world shaped by bias, power, and inherited patterns.
We don't always agree, and it's not always comfortable, but we show up anyways. So let's wake up.
Let's wake up.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Jonelle.
How's your week been?
My week's been good. I've been reflecting. How about you?
Okay. Reflecting on last week's topic or reflecting on anything. I kind of like this now open-ended reflecting I brought last week.
Well, you know me, I'm so literal.
I know. But sometimes there's other things that I'm reflecting on in life that I want to bring up here. But
so what I've been reflecting on, and I know it's more, you wanted us to, well, no, you talked about this idea of sustainability and long-term thinking. And I just was thinking a lot about education and I don't know how to do it. I don't know how a world can do it. I know that there's this big...
Do what? Can you give more context?
This is what has made me sad is I know our world is moving closer more and more to private schools, charter schools, homeschooling, because there's a lack of faith in our public schools. And that saddens me because I think I'm a really advocate for public opportunities where we have these shared spaces where we encounter people that are different from us. And so I don't know. Again, it's back to policy. Again, it's back to bringing our monies towards these places if we can. But I also think it's a bigger mind shift where we have to allow, like I remember when we made the decision for you to go public, I knew at that point I needed to be really involved. When we did all the interviewing at the private schools, like it was almost like I could just hand you off and they were going to do everything right? But I really felt like with public schools, I needed to be there. I needed to help the teachers. I need to be involved in PTA, whatever. And anyways, I just, I'm an advocate for public things. I like public libraries, public parks.
Well, I think it goes back to, again, building your community, building the community you want to live in. And I think there's total benefit to charter schools and private schools. I'm not going to deny people that, but public spaces require us to be community-based.
Yeah.
And I think the more we move away from that, the more it's individualistic and not community. And so I hear your sorrow with that, public schools have already lacked resources to begin with.
Yeah.
And so walking away from them, it just continues to hurt them more.
Yeah.
So,
I guess it's just, to me, it's the mindset and mind shift.
Yeah.
So, okay, topic.
Wait a minute.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe this is why I never do reflections.
Sorry.
Because you always jump in with your topic. Hold on. Maybe I had a reflection too.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to get called out as never having reflections, but maybe I'm seeing the pattern here a little bit more.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But I'm feeling less guilty about not having them.
Yeah, maybe we do.
Yeah. No, I think last week our topic about, or my point about longevity versus trend really has hit home for me around, and not necessarily me in my individual characteristics or my individual tasks, but more of this kind of how we differentiate what is overstepping our whiteness and what actually are positive trends. Is that
to be honest, when you say the word trend, the idea of capitalism just pops up right in my head. And it's like we're falling into some of these trends because of capitalism. Is your intention so that, like you said, a longevity, it's part of your culture, it's part of engagement, it's part of something that you want to activate within your child? Or is it a trend, which often is a sales job from capitalism?
Well, and I think the reason why this has sparked so much money is I feel like so often I'll get into conversations about, again, we'll use the topic from last week about Duolingo preschools being so expensive because white people are driving up the price. And so often I've been in these conversations with people, and I can't fully articulate why that is
Yeah.
why there's a negative outside of the impacts of others. And now, unfortunately, a lot of times when you have a conversation with people, they only care about the impacts to themselves,
Yeah.
not others. And so that longevity piece is now like such a key in my mind of helping people understand, like, your intentions are not wrong, but is this a long-term investment, or is this
A capitalist
just a
trend.
trend? And
Yeah.
it doesn't, I'm probably not gonna say capitalist trend,
Well, but
like,
I think that
is this
though,
because it's not necessarily capitalist. Like, you even talked about after we got off the podcast last week, you even talked about, like, how so oftentimes it's just because it's like a society trend. Like, so
yeah,
oftentimes people
but
just wanna say it because they can be like, "Oh, my kid is enrolled
but
in,
but
like,
part of that
Duolingo,"
is
or
reinforced by marketing. Part of that
yeah,
is
but part of it
reinforced.
is reinforced by societal
Yeah.
societal,
Well, I think is
pressure, or
I
society,
think
like, so not even to say capitalism, I
I think you're hitting
can't
on an
blame. Here's the deal,
interesting.
I blame a lot on capitalism and patriarchy. This in itself, I don't think I can fully blame on capitalists.
I don't know if but what I was gonna say
I think
is
white
this
entitlement,
is
sure.
this is where all of these subjects get really tricky because dual language, the ability to speak 2 languages is a really good thing.
Totally.
It's
I'm
a
not denying
really
that.
good thing.
This is why it was such a tough topic, because how do I bridge that understanding to our white
Yeah.
audience,
So it's
essentially?
like the intention. It goes back to the intention every time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
are you critically thinking about what you're doing with
What you're
something?
doing and its long-term impacts, kind of thing on yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, that's
Okay.
really sat with me.
Well, my topic is
Yeah,
again,
tell me about what have you
one of the things is typically I come to a topic from a disparate space, right? All of a sudden, I got uncomfortable with something and it made me think of something.
like you're several weeks on Tradwives.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. So the other day, I was at an event,
okay.
and at this event, there was a definite push that how we do things are better, how we do things have greater value, and we want you to bring people into that value. We want you to get people to align with the way we're thinking.
Ooh, and who is the we in that?
Well, I don't know if I want to say that.
Okay.
Okay. So it's just more about this idea of trying to convert people.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so what made me uncomfortable, and it was like a really quick reaction from this, is I've really been really working on trying to accept people for who they are,
Yeah.
where they are in life,
Yeah.
what their values are in life, where they're coming from. So my reaction to this, like, hip, hip, hooray, get a rally to say the way we're doing it is better, and we want you to come alongside, was really, really challenging. So one of the things I want to ask you, I mean, my reaction was just kind of crazy, actually. I felt a huge wave of discomfort. So
Okay.
one of the things I want to ask you is, have you ever caught yourself wanting someone to think or act more like you because it felt safer or more right? What did that bring up for you?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think everyone has probably had those moments in their lifetime of like, okay, but here's a great example of, I think, and well, I don't know if it's a great example, but like, when you have like a favorite show or a favorite band,
No, it's a
and
good
you're
example.
so excited about that. And then it's interesting. And then so you bring it up to your friends and they're not interested or don't really care. And you kind of almost find it like personally painful. Like you're
Yes.
very sad that like they're not going to just like come along this journey with
Yes.
you, essentially. And sometimes I have to say, and I've even done this, is like when someone likes something so much, I'm even sometimes more opposed to it, like
Well,
back off.
that is
kind of
part.
thing.
It's interesting because that is part of the research on this, but that's exactly it, right?
Yeah.
And it's
But I think
funny.
even more when it's a group mentality, so kind of you're talking about when there's a big group of people doing it, there tends to be much more pressure to like jump on board. I think if it's positive stuff, I mean, this is how cults work out. Like
Yeah.
they find a pain point that people are frustrated about
But
or
it's
a
interesting
positive
that you
thing.
should say this even language of positive, because if you're in the mix, of course you think it's positive. But if they're in the mix of something different, they think that's positive.
Yeah.
And so again, this like I got in a real emotional response of, wait, I am working on acceptance. And so one of the
But
things,
can
or
we break
accepting
down
people.
your emotional response so a little bit more? Because I feel like
Well, okay, in my situation, I was enough of a, like, it's so funny when you use the language of cult, because I guess you could call this a cult, but in my situation, I had been enough ingrained in this space that I understood what they were doing.
yeah.
And yet I've been away from that space long enough to actually see how I've changed.
And that's what I wanted you to kind of get
Yeah.
at, because I think that's often where some of these reactions
And I wouldn't mind.
happen.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have mind if the way they presented it was, wow, this is really good for me. I've really enjoyed this. This has really been beneficial for me. I'd like to share that with other people. But they don't have to come along if they don't want to. I just want to share it. But I understood the coded language as, this is great for me. This has transformed me.
Yeah.
I want to make sure it transforms you. And so that coded language of changing someone really bothered me, and not accepting a person for who they were.
I see. So you weren't bothered that you weren't accepting these people. That's where I think my confusion was. You were bothered that these people wanted everyone to change.
They wanted everyone to
But
change.
here's the thing with society that I think I've learned so often is there are always parts of our life that we are going to be susceptible, that we don't like who we are, we don't like our situation, we don't like whatever, that we want change. We see change as the end of the rainbow situation. And
Yeah.
so I think a lot of people prey on that. And unfortunately, I think there's parts, I'm not going to say all churches, but there's a lot of churches that prey on that. Unfortunately, a lot of other religions that prey on that, a lot of institutions that prey on that. And I think why you're uncomfortable is you're at a stable, confident, authentic place in your life right now.
Well, they do talk about authenticity.
Yeah.
So one of the things is, it's interesting, what does it really mean to accept someone for where they are?
Yeah.
Because I think that is, as I've been on this journey, and I've had to really break this down, right?
Yeah.
What does it mean to, like, okay, there's someone that is clearly different than I am. They might have different values than I have. They're very different. How do I look at them and see them for who they are? And one of the things when we don't do that, our connection is less than.
Yeah.
Because we're allowing ourselves to maybe be authentic, but we're not allowing them to be authentic.
Yeah.
We're making them conform to the way we see something should be, without letting them, without being curious to who they are.
So I think me and possibly the listeners still need a little bit more context to kind of what you're talking about, because I also think there are. Yeah. So can you give us a little bit more context of this? Was it like a sales pitch? Was it a conference?
It was at a
business?
church.
Okay.
And they wanted, and it was at a church, and it was at a church where there were a lot of young people. And clearly the pastor was saying, you gotta convert people. It was an evangelical church.
Okay. See, I know you didn't want to say it, but here's the deal. I think and the thing is, creates the space of understanding.
Yeah.
Because again, you could.
Well, I don't want to.
You could have been in a grocery store and they're like, we want to change how you do laundry. Like, I'm just trying to understand.
Well, and I think the thing
what would give you that big.
So I grew up in my early years. I grew up in a place that it was more about walking alongside people than converting. I never thought of myself as in fact, if your faith was Jewish or your faith was Muslim or Shiite, my job was to learn from you
Yeah.
and to be in presence with you. That was really what I was taught, at least from my family values and my
probably
family
to teach
systems.
them about yours. If you're listening,
Let's
teach them
talk.
about your
Yeah,
religion.
let's talk. Well, I was at a church that was an evangelical church, and the pastor was very much about our job is to go out and make Christians. And it really, like, it just caught me because it's like, what about someone's agency?
Yeah.
What about someone's own values? What about someone's own space and place and where they're at? It doesn't mean that they don't have a spiritual sense or that they don't love a God. It just means that they're coming to that God from a different space. So it just it hit me very raw because I thought our job now in this time of age is to learn about each other and to accept one another. Now, so then it made me start thinking, okay, what does it mean to accept one another? What is some of the work I've done? And one of the things that is interesting about acceptance is it doesn't mean I agree with you.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I agree with the person, or not you. I don't mean to say you, but
no, I understand.
it doesn't mean I agree with them, but it also means it's not my job to change them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do you, when I say that, what does that spark
No,
to
I
you?
think I think you said something interesting about what this pastor said about converting. And I think what I find fascinating about that and kind of is how do you expect to convert, if that is your goal, how do you expect to convert someone without teaching and then also learning yourself?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of, I think, where there's you're feeling some disconnect because it doesn't feel like it is even a natural path to understanding or learning. It's like a forceful, almost salesman approach. And I think, and this is maybe a silly analogy, but I think back to my Nordstrom sales floor days, and I had an amazing career at Nordstrom. It was not when I was on the floor. I will just tell everyone that I am not the natural born salesperson that you need to be. And not because I'm not great at sales. I am great at sales when I feel like, not that there's a purpose for it, but when I feel like I'm not converting someone per se.
Yeah.
But I hated sales that would force things on someone that clearly wasn't good for them. Like, you'd get someone coming in and they're talking about credit card debt or this or that. I'm not going to push all of this stuff on them because that's what I need in the moment to get the sale to project. I hated doing that. But yet I was really good at when someone needed a space or needed something, really uplifting them and finding them the right thing. And so I think that's kind of like, in my mind, this is what I'm kind of associating with, is like that sell to sell anything. Like, you're not even really, they believe in their stuff, but like, that's not really even what they're selling. They're selling just to sell kind of thing, as opposed to like intentionally offering outreach.
Well, the challenge is it's so embedded morally within our culture. So they actually think they are doing, when we're in that space, they actually think they are doing, not selling, but they're bringing you into a better way of life. I mean, this is the hard part. So one of the things that's
that's what I'm saying is but that's exactly what I'm saying with my perspective is it's not, it sounds like that approach, and I don't think it's all Christians, so I don't want to say they, but it sounds like that approach that pastor was talking about was selling in a sense, whereas I'm talking about like converting versus bringing someone to Christ in my mind is different. Bringing someone means you're taking into account their needs and how this will help them.
Well, and this is where that language has shifted so much, hasn't it? But anyways, it's so interesting because one of the things, acceptance isn't agreement, and permission to accept someone for who they are also doesn't mean endorsement. You don't necessarily, I mean, there's plenty of things that people are doing that I would not endorse, but as long as it's aligned in their values and it's not hurting people, then I think that's a clear thing. It's and I'm keeping my boundaries around it. But one of the things that it's really hard because so much of our white culture has been embedded in religion, our whiteness, our patriarchy, that good often means bringing others into alignment with our value.
Well,
I'm being a good person because I'm bringing in them into something that I feel is good.
Well,
so it gets very, very confusing, right?
and we've talked about this before as we had a conversation with family over the summer about how the word good in their mind was synonymous with someone who's a Christian.
Yeah.
Versus, not necessarily someone from another faith background, they wouldn't automatically assume is good and stuff. But if they were a Christian, they automatically assume it was good. And
So
I
of course
agree,
we want them to come to the good
good.
space.
And I think the counter argument that a lot, at least of my generation,
Yeah.
has had as a lot are moving away from the church is it is a scarier thought that the only thing keeping, again, we'll generalize Christianity here, good is the thought that there's someone watching over them. Like the good is not coming
It's
internally
because
from
it's
them.
safe.
It's an
that is
external, it's an external watch over. Whereas like a lot of my generation who's no longer religious will kind of say is good comes from my own internal value system, So if I don't know how to explain,
I
but
do want to forewarn you. Since our new administration, church attendance is up nationwide.
I know it's up. I'm not
Nationwide.
saying, I'm saying my generation.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it is up in boomers and it is up in Gen Z because there's a
Interesting.
lot of young Gen Z
Yeah.
that this is where you're seeing some of the trad wives. Gen X and millennials, it's down.
Yeah.
Gen X and millennials have walked away from church pretty strongly.
And one of the things that people may have walked away from church is this exact
Well, that's
reason.
what I'm saying. This is exactly what I'm talking about.
It's like, it's interesting. It's a weird analogy. Maybe I shouldn't do it. I do weird comparisons. But I remember one of the things that people hated when you're talking about, buying something at a store. They hated the idea of the rush of the salesperson coming in. So this idea of changing that up, not having the salesperson come and trying to make that sale made that experience different.
Yeah.
A lot of people are running because that sale of you need to be here and convert and be like us is an uncomfortable thing. Yeah. So one of the things why we do it is that language of what you were talking about. It makes you feel safe when you're with a volume of people that share your value, right? It's that kind of, what did you call it? The group theory or
social
identity theory. It gives you that value. The other thing is we hate to be in discomfort. So if this group of ours is part of this comfort patrol or comfort space, then of course we're going to share our values. I really want to break that up, like how to urge to not quickly go to bringing people to this language of having to have my values or my
okay, so that's where you're going with all this.
Yes.
Okay.
So what made me uncomfortable was this right away space, like we're in the space together and we want everyone to come to our values. That feels disingenuous, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It feels like wait, why am I not getting to know this person?
But again, to your point, I see where that has been inbred because in those cultures, they're so excited about, in the church community, they're so excited about what has been given to them, what they have seen, through all of that of course they want to share that glory that they see. And this is a tricky conversation because I have a very strong faith in God. I do not have a church community for a lot of these reasons, but I still have a really strong faith in God. And so I can see how, I love talking about my relationship with God to other people who are interested because I think it has been a huge impact on how I live my life and how I can get through hard times. And so I can see how people want to bring that to others, but I completely agree that it's done in a way that does not respect the authenticity
of another person's,
the position, like the station in life, the location, as you once used.
I was thinking as I got uncomfortable and I was trying to think of these metaphors.
Yeah, let's go.
I'm really excited about a steak restaurant. Jonelle, you have to
I
come
hate
to that.
steak.
You hate steak and you're a vegetarian.
Yeah.
And you would be so upset with me
I would be.
if I really pushed you into that space.
Yeah.
What you would have appreciated was my story, that I found joy in that restaurant, that I found joy in something that I loved. And you then could share what you love.
Yeah.
Right? And then we could have an authentic conversation about the things that bring passion and meaning and inspiration to our. Why are you laughing?
I feel like you have just circled around to a 10-year argument, a decade-old argument we've been having.
I know.
And you hit it spot in the nose. Okay, this is a derailment, ladies and gentlemen. But for the last 10 or 15 years, Karen has been so mad at me, not just slightly mad at me, so mad at me that I, on the drive home from Texas to Seattle, when I left college, that I did not let her at midnight stop at a 24-hour steak restaurant where you had to eat a 72-ounce steak and potatoes.
Still on my bucket list.
It's still on her bucket list. But here's the deal. In that moment at midnight, did a vegetarian want to sit and watch her eat a 72-ounce steak, which I didn't think she could finish, and then would have to pay, and then she'd be mad that she had to pay for a bad steak? If I had known, like 15 years later, she would still have been bringing it up every couple months, would I maybe have gone? But I love that you just brought up this analogy
because
of why, as a steak lover, would you want to force a vegetarian to go sit and watch somebody eat steak?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't. It would be disrespectful.
It would be
to their position in life.
It would be. And so I guess it rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
And it rubbed me the wrong way. I don't mind. I love the idea of walking around people. I love the idea of hearing someone's genuine transformation story. I love to see if you believe that Christ came, or Muhammad or Buddha came into your life and changed your life. I want to hear about that because I'm curious.
I also think what I hear you saying, though, is I think or maybe this is me jumping on, this is mine. Maybe some of the frustration is also not that they're wanting to share their story, but that they're in the context of this church that you went to, there's not a willingness to hear other stories.
Maybe that's it.
And so their story is the only story. Because like you were saying there, I would love, whether I agree or disagree, or it's really interesting. I have a good friend who listens to this podcast, and he definitely does not agree with most of what he says, most of what we say.
What he says, yeah.
Sorry, most of what we say, and which is fine because I really appreciate and value that he listens, because he listens for a different perspective. And it's not that, like, I have other friends who listen to us religiously, and I am so grateful for them. But and I feel bad, we align on so many of the same things.
Yeah.
So it's not as
It's like singing into the choir.
Yeah, so it's not as hard for them. They enjoy the topics versus someone who's really out there saying, like, we don't necessarily agree, but I still listen because I think hearing your perspective is interesting.
Yeah.
And so this is, I think, kind of what you're saying there.
And it goes both ways. How am I willing to listen to someone that I don't necessarily agree with their values? So one of the things
that's the hard part.
But this is really important because it all comes down to us being willing to sit in our discomfort.
Yeah.
So first of all, the goal, what made me uncomfortable was the unwillingness, like you said, first in that context, for someone to come with their authentic self.
Yeah.
And to be accepted, not to just listen, but to be accepted.
Yeah.
So that's what got me going. And then on the flip side, as a white woman and with my own personal biases and values, et cetera, how am I willing to accept someone else's values for who they are?
Yeah.
And so some of the things that is a tool that is helpful, first of all, is, again, knowing that we're not, being explicit. I hear you. I don't necessarily agree.
Yeah.
Being explicit.
But also being curious.
Yeah.
Like, I hear
I'm
you.
curious.
Not even I hear you.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
But
where are you coming
but
from?
letting them know that that's not in agreement with you, because I think that's important. Also, setting your boundaries. Like you've been really working on me with this language of what is a boundary versus when is something being policed, right? So
I
this,
don't think.
well, you
Yeah.
haven't used the word police, but that's exactly what it is. So you have said, Mom, a boundary is when you're talking about yourself. And when I'm policing with someone is
Yeah.
me
When you're
telling
forcing them.
when I'm telling someone
Well,
to say something.
yeah.
And so the difference is, hey, I hear you. This is making me a bit uncomfortable. I need to walk away right now.
Yeah.
Hey, I hear you. So you're not disrespecting someone, but you're also setting your boundaries and how you need to figure out
I think
these
so often
spaces.
people use the term boundary as control. Like, my boundary is, you can't come over in the evenings or whatever. But no, that's policing someone.
That's policing.
The boundary that you're saying is, I will not answer the door after 6 p.m. or, whatever, because that is the boundary that you're controlling yourself on. And it's just a different. And so, again, I think it goes back to it's the different approach of, are you curious about others?
Yeah. And can you genuinely try to accept them for their story? And I thought a lot about that podcast that we did about trusting the lived experience.
The lived experience. It's a huge
deal. Anyways, I know we need to wrap this up but this is something I'd love to talk about for a while. But this language, maybe one of a reflection is, how can you settle into the space of really trying to accept the story that person is saying to you, who they are, without trying to make them someone else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also a little bit how we've talked about is like, don't listen to respond. Like, do you find yourself listening to responding, or do you find yourself listening?
Yeah, or voice over victory.
Exactly. All of those kind of like,
yeah.
And stuff. I think these are great ways, especially when we're talking about like the religious base or, different positions in life.
Yeah. Anything.
So I love that.
So I'm working on trying to
Karen.
accept it. And I want to stay in that zone.
I love that.
Thank you.
I'm so happy you've now accepted that I didn't want to go to that steak restaurant.
Yeah, no, you haven't.
And
you've accepted that I still do.
No, I have not accepted that. I'm not going back.
Thanks for joining. That's setting your boundary. Good job.
We go. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on White Women Wake Up. We hope today's conversation sparks something in you, whether it's a reflection, a new question, or a deeper commitment to showing up with empathy and accountability. If you found this episode meaningful, subscribe, leave a review, call us, have lunch, go to coffee. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. You can also connect with us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Substack, and White Women Wake Up. Jonelle's back on the blogs again.
I know.
We'd love to hear your thoughts and keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious, be open, and let's keep waking up together.
Bye. Sounding creepy. But
that's creepy.
I meant it as funny.
I
It
know.
wasn't. Okay.